The phone rang at 2 in the morning, and I knew before answering that something terrible had happened. My father's voice came through, broken and desperate, begging me to wire $50,000 immediately because my younger brother Derek was in serious danger. He sobbed that Derek owed money to dangerous people and that he had already drained his retirement account trying to help. My hand trembled as I remembered the day 3 years ago when this same man refused to loan me $15,000 to save my struggling landscaping business, telling me he didn't believe in throwing money at failures, then casually writing Derek a check for $155,000 for medical school without a second thought. I sat in my modest apartment, staring at my phone as the memories crashed over me like a wave I had been holding back for years. The weight of that midnight call pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. My father's voice still echoed in my ears, but all I could think about was how we got here, how the distance between us grew from a crack into a canyon, so wide I thought nothing could ever bridge it. Growing up, I was always the practical son. That is what my father Marcus called me. Practical. It sounded like a compliment, but it never felt like one. It felt like a consolation prize. Derek, my younger brother, was the golden child, the one destined for greatness, the one who would make our family name mean something. I was just Wilson, the kid who was good with his hands, who liked working outside, who did not have the spark of brilliance my father saw blazing in Derek's eyes. Our mother died from cancer when I was 17 and Derek was 14. I watched my father collapse inward after we buried her, like a building falling in on itself. He stopped seeing me altogether. Every ounce of his grief, his hope, his desperate need to make meaning out of tragedy, he poured into Derek. My younger brother became the vessel for all of Dad's dreams, and I became invisible. I worked construction jobs all through community college, studying business management at night after 10-hour shifts hauling lumber and mixing concrete. My hands were calloused and my back ached, but I loved the work. I loved seeing something take shape because of effort, because of planning and execution. I loved the straightforward honesty of it. You do the work, you see the results. Derek sailed through private high school on my father's dime, then got into a prestigious university for their pre-med program. I remember the celebration dinner, how my father could not stop smiling, how he kept telling everyone Derek was going to be a doctor, a real doctor. He looked at me exactly once that whole night, and his expression said everything his mouth did not. Why could not you be more like your brother? I graduated with my business degree and spent the next 4 years working like a machine. I saved $32,000, living in a studio apartment barely bigger than a closet, driving a truck held together by rust and prayer, eating rice and beans most nights. But I had a plan. I had researched everything about starting a landscaping company. I knew the market. I knew the competition. I had the skills from years of outdoor work, and I had 3 potential contracts lined up with property management companies ready to sign the moment I could prove I had the equipment and licensing to handle the jobs. I needed $15,000 more, just $15,000 to cover the commercial-grade equipment, the business licenses, the insurance bonds. It was all mapped out in a 70-page business plan I had spent 6 months perfecting. Every number checked, every projection conservative, every risk assessed and mitigated. This was not a dream. This was a solid, viable business ready to launch. I remember the Sunday dinner when I presented it to my father. I was 26 years old, and my hands shook as I slid the bound proposal across his dining room table. He was the first person I showed it to because despite everything, despite the distance and the favoritism, some stupid part of me still wanted his approval. Still wanted him to look at me the way he looked at Derek. Marcus barely glanced at it. He flipped through maybe 3 pages, and I watched his expression shift from mild interest to thinly veiled contempt. He pushed it back across the table like it was contaminated. Landscaping is just manual labor, Wilson. It is beneath our family. You have a degree. Get a real job with benefits, with a future. Stop chasing these pipe dreams and grow up. I tried to explain. I told him I already had the clients waiting. I told him the profit margins, the growth potential, the fact that commercial landscaping was a multi-billion-dollar industry with stable demand. I showed him letters of intent from the property management companies. I laid out exactly how I would pay back any loan within 2 years. He cut me off. I am not going to enable your refusal to pursue higher education. You want to play in the dirt for the rest of your life. That is your choice. But do not expect me to fund it. 2 weeks later, we sat at that same table for another Sunday dinner. Derek casually mentioned he had been accepted to medical school. 4 years, full ride on tuition, at one of the best programs in the state. Except it was not a full ride. It was $155,000 for tuition, fees, books, and living expenses over 4 years. My father's face lit up like I had never seen. He actually teared up. He stood up from the table, walked to his office, and came back with his checkbook. He wrote a check for $40,000 right there, the first installment, without asking a single question, without asking to see a plan, without hesitation. I sat there frozen, watching my father hand my brother more money in one moment than I had saved in 4 years of brutal work. Derek took it with a casual thanks, like it was expected, like it was his birthright. I could not stay quiet. I asked my father how he could do this, how he could refuse to help me with $15,000 for a business with actual paying clients lined up, then turn around and hand Derek $40,000 without blinking. His answer burned itself into my memory. Derek is investing in a real future. You are just playing in the dirt. I left that dinner and never came back. I maxed out 3 credit cards at crushing interest rates. I took out a high-interest personal loan from a predatory lender who charged me twice what a bank would have. I made it work anyway. I launched my business by myself, working 100-hour weeks, underbidding every competitor until I built a reputation, slowly clawing my way from barely surviving to actually thriving. 3 years. It took 3 years of blood, sweat, and relentless determination. But I built something real. My company grew. I hired employees. I expanded services. I proved every single doubt wrong. But the victory felt hollow because the person I most wanted to prove wrong never called, never apologized, never acknowledged I existed. Derek never reached out either. Not once in 3 years. No text, no call, no acknowledgement that we were even related. He was fully absorbed in his privileged life, funded entirely by our father, living the dream that was supposed to redeem all of Marcus's pain. And now, at 2 a.m, that same father was on my phone begging for money. I should have hung up. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to end the call, to let them drown in whatever mess they had created. But my father said something that made me pause. Derek never finished medical school. My blood went cold. What? He dropped out in his 3rd year. But he has been pretending to still be a student for the past 2 years, taking money from me the whole time. I only found out the truth 2 weeks ago. The room spun. $155,000, plus the additional amounts my father mentioned sending over the years. All of it gone. And Derek had been lying for 2 years. Wilson, please. Your brother owes very bad people a lot of money. They are going to hurt him. I need $50,000 to make this right. I have nothing left. Please. I hung up without answering. My mind raced, trying to process what I had just heard. Part of me felt vindicated, watching the golden child fall from grace. Part of me felt sick, realizing how deep the dysfunction in my family ran. And part of me, the part I hated most, still wondered if I had some obligation to help. I did not sleep that night. I just sat in the dark, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of a choice I never asked to make. My father called again at 7 a.m. I let it ring 4 times before answering, my voice flat and cold. You want my money? Then you tell me everything. No lies, no sugarcoating, everything. There was a long pause. Then I heard my father take a shuddering breath. He sounded older than I had ever heard him, broken in a way that almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. The story came out in pieces, each one more pathetic than the last. Derek had struggled academically from the start of medical school. The workload crushed him, and he barely passed his 1st year. Instead of asking for help or admitting he was in over his head, he started taking stimulants to keep up. Pills to stay awake, pills to focus, pills to take the edge off when the anxiety became unbearable. What started as academic assistance became a full addiction within months. 2nd year got worse. Derek failed multiple courses and was placed on academic probation, but he never told our father. Instead, he created an elaborate web of lies. He forged documents, created fake email accounts pretending to be school administrators, sent our father fabricated grade reports showing excellent progress. When Marcus asked why Derek needed extra money, Derek said he was taking specialty research credits that required expensive equipment. He said he was participating in advanced surgical training programs. He said he needed funds for medical conferences and certification courses. Marcus sent another $35,000 over the next 2 years, beyond the original $155,000. Derek actually dropped out completely in his 3rd year, not because he was asked to leave, but because he stopped going. He just stopped showing up to classes, stopped taking exams, stopped pretending to be a medical student in any real sense. But he kept taking my father's money, cashing every check, maintaining the charade. He moved to a cheap apartment in a terrible neighborhood. He spent the money on drugs and gambling, creating a fake life complete with a fake study group and a fake girlfriend who was also supposedly pre-med. When my father called, Derek would stage conversations, have friends talk in the background about medical terminology, make it all seem real. This went on for 2 years. My father discovered the truth by accident. He decided to surprise Derek by flying out to visit his medical school campus, planning to take him to dinner and meet some of his professors. He showed up at the registrar's office asking about his son's schedule, and they told him Derek had not been enrolled for over 2 years. Marcus tracked Derek down to his actual apartment, a run-down place in a neighborhood where gunshots were background noise. He found Derek strung out, the apartment filthy and full of drug paraphernalia and gambling debts scrawled on scraps of paper. Derek broke down when confronted. He admitted everything. He said he owed dangerous people money, that he had borrowed from a loan shark to pay gambling debts, and now he owed $75,000. He said they had threatened his life, shown up at his apartment, beaten him, and given him 2 weeks to pay or they would kill him. My father, desperate and terrified, immediately gave Derek $25,000 from his retirement savings. But the supposed debt collectors kept demanding more, $50,000 more, and Marcus had nothing left. He had already depleted his retirement account helping Derek, and he faced bankruptcy if he tried to liquidate any other assets. Only now, with nowhere else to turn, did he come to me. He begged. He actually begged. He said he would do anything, promise anything, pay me back somehow. He admitted he was wrong about everything. Wrong about dismissing my business. Wrong about the favoritism. Wrong about all of it. I listened to all of this with a cold fury building in my chest. The betrayal was so deep, so complete, that I could barely find words. Why should I believe any of this is real? You have both been lying for years. Marcus swore it was true. He said he would prove it, that I could meet with them both and see for myself. Fine. I will meet you, both of you, in person, tomorrow. But I am not promising anything. I hung up and immediately started planning. If this was real, I needed to verify it. If this was another con, I needed to know. Either way, I was not walking into this blind. The next evening, I drove to the diner my father suggested for our meeting. It was a neutral location, public, the kind of place where people could not make a scene. I arrived early and sat in my truck, watching the entrance. My stomach twisted in knots. My father arrived first. He looked terrible. He had aged a decade in 3 years, his face gaunt and gray, his shoulders slumped like he was carrying a physical weight. He saw me through the window and raised a hand in tentative greeting. I did not wave back. I walked inside and slid into the booth across from him. Where is Derek? Marcus would not meet my eyes. He is too ashamed to face you. He wanted to come, but he could not do it. I started to stand. Then this meeting is over. Wait. Please, Wilson. Just listen. I stayed standing. You have 30 seconds. He will come. He is just scared. Please. Just give him a few minutes. I sat back down, but I was done with patience. I stared at my father, this man who had shaped so much of my pain, and felt nothing but contempt. The waitress came by and I ordered coffee. I had no intention of drinking. The silence between us was suffocating. Then the door opened, and I saw someone who barely looked like Derek shuffle inside. My breath caught in my throat. My brother looked destroyed. He was gaunt, his skin sallow and stretched tight over his bones. His eyes were sunken and ringed with dark circles. His hands shook as he walked, and I could see visible bruises on his face, yellowing around the edges like they were a week old. He wore a stained hoodie and jeans that hung off his frame. He slid into the booth next to my father and could not look at me. His whole body trembled. For the first time, I felt something crack in my armor of anger. This was not the golden child I remembered. This was someone broken, someone who looked genuinely terrified. Derek finally looked up at me, and his eyes were wet with tears. "I am so sorry, Wilson. I am so sorry for everything." His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and turned it toward me. On the screen were text messages, dozens of them, all threatening. Photos of Derek beaten worse than he looked now. And then a recent message with a picture of Derek's apartment door, spray-painted with the words "Last Warning." I looked at the evidence, at my brother's shaking hands, at the fear in his eyes that seemed too real to fake. And despite everything, despite all the lies and betrayal, I felt something in my chest tighten. But my business instincts were screaming that something still did not add up. I left the diner without making any promises. I told my father and Derek I needed 48 hours to arrange the funds, which was a lie. What I really needed was time to find out the truth. My landscaping company had grown significantly over the past 3 years. I now employed 12 people and managed commercial properties all over the city. One of my biggest clients was a property management company that handled dozens of apartment complexes, and through that work, I had become friends with a tenant named Jake, who lived in one of the buildings I maintained. Jake was a private investigator. He ran background checks for landlords and sometimes handled fraud cases for businesses. He was good at his job, discreet, and he owed me a favor after I helped him out of a jam with a difficult property manager. I called him that night. "Jake, I need help. I have a situation with my family, and I need to know if I am being conned." I met him at a 24-hour diner across town and laid out everything. The medical school lie, the supposed loan shark, the threats, the money my father had already given Derek. I showed him the photos Derek had shown me on his phone. Jake listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he leaned back and crossed his arms. "You want me to verify if this threat is real? If your brother actually owes dangerous people money? And if so, who they are and how deep he is in?" "Exactly. I will pay you $2,000 to dig fast and dig deep. I need answers in 48 hours. Jake nodded. "I can do that. Give me everything you know. Names, addresses, phone numbers, anything." I provided what I had. Jake got to work immediately. The next day and a half were torture. I went through the motions at work, managing crews and checking on job sites, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept seeing Derek's bruised face, his shaking hands, the fear in his eyes. But I also kept hearing my father's voice dismissing my business as playing in the dirt. Jake called me on the second evening. "We need to meet. Now." We met at his office, a small space above a Vietnamese restaurant. He had a folder on his desk, thick with printouts and notes. His expression was grim. "Wilson, sit down." I sat. My heart pounded. "What did you find?" "Your brother's story is partially true, but it has been heavily manipulated. Derek did develop a drug problem. He did gamble. However, this loan shark demanding money, that is not what you think." Jake slid a photo across the desk. It showed a young guy, maybe 30, wearing a college sweatshirt. "This is Chad Brennan. He was Derek's roommate during medical school. He is not a loan shark. He is not dangerous. He is a physical therapy student who also dropped out. He loaned Derek $12,000 over the course of a year to help him with rent and expenses. Derek never paid him back." I stared at the photo. "So the $75,000 debt is fake? Completely fabricated." The threatening messages were staged. Derek sent them to himself from a burner phone. I traced the numbers. The photo of him beaten badly? That happened, but not from debt collectors. Derek started a fight at a bar 3 weeks ago while drunk. The other guy got a few good hits in before the bouncer broke it up. Police report confirms it. My hands clenched into fists. So this is a con. They are trying to manipulate me into giving them money. It gets worse. Jake pulled out bank statements. Your father knew Derek dropped out much earlier than he claimed. Look at these transactions. Marcus has been supporting Derek's lifestyle knowingly for over a year. Small transfers, rent payments, grocery money. He knew. The room felt too hot. Why would he lie about that? Because your father is in trouble too. Jake slid over another document. Marcus made a bad investment last year. Lost a significant amount of his retirement savings. But that is not the real problem. The real problem is this. He handed me a financial audit report. My eyes scanned the numbers, not understanding at first. Then it hit me. Your father is the treasurer of a community development fund. Have been for 8 years. This is an internal audit report that was leaked to me by a contact. Your father has been embezzling money from the fund. $68,000 over the past 3 years. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. An external audit is scheduled in 3 weeks. If the money is not replaced by then, your father faces criminal charges. Embezzlement. Breach of fiduciary duty. He is looking at 5 to 7 years in prison. Everything clicked into place. The desperation in my father's voice. The elaborate story about Derek's life being in danger. They were not just conning me for money. They were trying to save my father from prison. Jake leaned forward. They hatched this plan together. Create a crisis involving Derek's life to guilt you into giving them money. Use the $50,000 to cover part of the embezzlement. Hope you never find out the truth. I sat there in silence, absorbing the full scope of the betrayal. It was not enough that my father had dismissed me, favored Derek, refused to help my business while funding my brother's fake life. Now he was actively trying to manipulate me, to exploit whatever remaining family loyalty I had left. The rage I felt was cold and calculating. I wanted them to pay, not just for this con, but for everything. Jake, I need your help with something else. I need to record a conversation without them knowing. He raised an eyebrow. What are you planning? I am going to teach them a lesson they will never forget. We spent the next hour planning. Jake would wire me with a recording device. I would call my father and agree to give them the money, but insist on handing it over in person at my father's house. I would get them to admit everything on tape. Then I would decide what to do with that recording. I called my father that evening. He answered on the first ring, desperate hope in his voice. Dad, I will give you the $50,000. I heard him exhale in relief. Wilson, thank you. Thank you so much. I promise we will pay you back. I promise we will make this right. I want to give it to you in person. Tomorrow evening. At your house. Both of you need to be there. Of course. Yes. We will be there. Thank you, son. Thank you. I hung up feeling nothing but cold determination. They had no idea what was coming. The next evening, Jake fitted me with a small recording device hidden in my jacket. It was voice-activated and would capture everything. He parked down the street from my father's house in case things went bad. I withdrew $50,000 in cash from my business account and put it in a large envelope. It was bait, a prop to make them think they had won. I walked up to my father's house, the same house I had grown up in, and knocked on the door. My father answered, looking nervous, but relieved. Come in, Wilson. Come in. I stepped inside and immediately knew something was wrong. In the living room were not just my father and Derek, but also my Aunt Linda, my father's sister, and my cousin Brian. They had set up an ambush. I stood in the entryway, taking in the scene. My Aunt Linda sat on the couch, her expression carefully arranged into concern. My cousin Brian stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, trying to look authoritative. Derek sat in the corner looking miserable, and my father hovered near the door like he might bolt at any second. Wilson, thank you for coming. My Aunt Linda stood and approached me with her arms open like she expected a hug. I stepped back. What is this? My hand trembled as I remembered the day 3 years ago when this same man refused to loan me $15,000 to save my struggling landscaping business, telling me he didn't believe in throwing money at failures, then casually writing Derek a check for $155,000 for medical school without a second thought. I looked at my father. You said it would be just us. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I thought it would help to have more family here, to show you that we all support Derek, that we all think you should help. This was an intervention, not for Derek's drug problem, but for my supposed lack of family loyalty. They were going to gang up on me, pressure me with guilt and obligation until I handed over the money. I almost left right there. But then I remembered the recording device in my jacket. This could actually work in my favor. Let them all implicate themselves. I walked into the living room and sat down in the chair farthest from everyone. The envelope with the cash I kept in my hand, visible. I saw Derek's eyes lock onto it. Okay. Talk. My Aunt Linda launched into a prepared speech about family obligations. She talked about how I had done so well for myself, how my business was thriving, how I had always been the strong one, the capable one. She said Derek was struggling, that he needed help, that family was supposed to be there for each other in times of crisis. You have been blessed with success, Wilson. Do not let pride keep you from doing the right thing. My cousin Brian jumped in. Look, man, I know you and your dad had issues, but Derek is in real danger. You have the money. Just help him out. You can afford it. I sat there silently, letting them talk. The recording device was capturing everything. I glanced at Derek, who would not meet my eyes. He looked like he wanted to disappear. Finally, my father spoke. He sat down heavily on the couch, next to Linda. Wilson, your mother would want you to save your brother. That line crossed a boundary I did not know I had. My mother. He was invoking my mother, the woman whose death broke our family, whose memory he had dishonored by playing favorites and lying for years. I felt rage surge through me, hot and immediate. I stood up. The room went quiet. My mother would want me to save Derek? Let me tell you what my mother would actually want. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder Jake had sent me. I started laying out printed documents on the coffee table, one by one. My mother would want the truth. So here it is. Derek's loan shark does not exist. His name is Chad Brennan. He is not a dangerous criminal. He is a former roommate who loaned Derek $12,000 that was never paid back. I slapped down the photo of Chad. My Aunt Linda picked it up, confused. The threatening text messages? Derek sent them to himself from a burner phone. The beating he took? Bar fight he started while drunk. Police report right here. I threw down the police report. Derek's face went white. The $75,000 debt? Completely made up. This entire crisis is a lie designed to manipulate me into giving you money. My father started to speak, but I cut him off. And you, Dad, you want to talk about family? About doing the right thing? Let me tell you what you did. I pulled out the bank statements Jake had found. You knew Derek dropped out over a year ago. These transfers prove it. You have been funding his drug habit and his lies while pretending you just found out. Marcus looked like he might be sick. Linda and Brian were staring at him in shock. But wait, there is more. Because the real reason you need my money is not to save Derek from imaginary loan sharks. It is to save yourself from prison. I threw down the audit report. You embezzled $68,000 from the Community Development Fund, where you are treasurer. The same fund that gives microloans and grants to small businesses and families in need. The same kind of fund you refused to help me access when I needed startup capital. You stole from people like me while telling me my business was not worth your investment. The room was dead silent. My Aunt Linda stood up, her face pale. Marcus, is this true? My father could not speak. He just sat there, broken, tears streaming down his face. An external audit is in 3 weeks. If that money is not replaced, you are going to prison, 5 to 7 years. That is what this is really about. Not Derek's life. Your freedom. Brian looked disgusted. He grabbed his jacket. I am not part of this. I did not know any of this. Linda followed him, stopping only to look at Marcus with disappointment and betrayal. Fix this, Marcus. Whatever you have to do, fix it. They left. The door slammed behind them. It was just me, my father, and Derek now. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the recording device, holding it up so they could both see it. I have been recording everything, every word from the moment I walked in. You both admitting to the con. Dad admitting to the embezzlement. All of it. Derek made a choking sound. My father put his head in his hands. I could turn this over to the police right now. I could let you both face the consequences of your choices. Derek, you are looking at fraud charges. Dad, you are looking at prison time. My father looked up at me, his face destroyed. Please, Wilson, please do not do this. I stood there with the recording device in one hand and the envelope of cash in the other. I had all the power in this moment, and it felt hollow. I am not giving you a single dollar. But I am also not turning this recording in. Not yet. Because I have conditions. Marcus looked up with desperate hope. Anything. We will do anything. Derek must enter a legitimate residential rehabilitation program within 1 week. Full-time. Minimum 90 days. You will provide proof of enrollment or I go to the police. Derek nodded frantically. Derek must get a job when he completes rehab. Any job. And he will pay back the $12,000 he actually owes Chad. You will show me payment receipts every month. Okay. Yes. Derek will write me a full written apology for the con and for the years of taking advantage of Dad's favoritism. A real apology, not some half-hearted garbage. I will. I promise. I turned to my father. You will immediately confess the embezzlement to the Community Fund Board. You will tell them everything and propose a repayment plan. I want to be present when you do it. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. You will sell this house. You will downsize to something you can actually afford and use the proceeds to pay back the money you stole. My father's face crumpled, but he nodded. You will write me a full written apology acknowledging the favoritism and the damage it caused. You will own what you did to me. I will. Both of you will attend family therapy sessions with me. Twice a month, minimum for at least 6 months. If you miss one session, this deal is off. We will. I swear we will. If you complete all of this, I will consider helping you avoid criminal charges. If you refuse, or if you fail to follow through on any of these conditions, I turn everything over to the police, and I walk away forever. This is your only chance. The room was silent, except for my father's quiet sobbing. Do we have a deal? Yes, my father whispered. Yes. Derek nodded, tears streaming down his face. I put the recording device back in my jacket. Good. You have 1 week to show me Derek's rehab enrollment. I will be in touch about the confession to the fund board. I turned to leave, still holding the envelope of cash. My father's voice stopped me at the door. Wilson, thank you. Thank you for giving us a chance to make this right. I did not turn around. Do not thank me. Just do the work. I walked out, got in my truck, and drove away. I made it 3 blocks before I had to pull over because my hands were shaking too hard to drive. That night, my phone rang. It was Jake. How did it go? I got everything on tape. They agreed to my terms. Good. You did the right thing. I am not sure there was a right thing in any of this. I hung up and sat in my truck for a long time, trying to process everything that had just happened. I felt drained, exhausted, and strangely empty. The victory I thought I would feel never came. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from Derek. Can we meet tomorrow? Just you and me? Please? Against my better judgment, I agreed. The next day, we met at a park near his apartment. Derek looked even worse in the daylight, haunted and sick. We sat on a bench in silence for a long time. Finally, Derek spoke. I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the truth about something I never told anyone. He pulled out his phone and opened a folder. Inside were hundreds of photos and videos spanning 3 years. Derek scrolling through them, his hands shaking. I have been documenting everything. My failures, my addiction, the lies, everything. I do not even know why. Maybe I was crying out for help, but did not know how to ask. He showed me video after video. Derek high, Derek crying, Derek in the depths of despair. It was painful to watch. Then he opened the most recent video. It was dated 2 days before my father called me. On the screen, Derek sat alone in his apartment. His voice was flat, emotionless. I am planning to end my life tomorrow. I have the pills ready. I have written the note. There is nothing left for me. I destroyed everything. I am a failure, a liar, an addict. Everyone would be better off without me. But I keep thinking about Wilson, my brother. the one person I never deserved. And I wonder if maybe, just maybe, if I could see him one more time, I could find a reason to stay. But I do not deserve that chance. The video ended. Derek looked at me with tears streaming down his face. Dad showing up when he did, finding me like he did, it saved my life. And when he came up with the plan to ask you for money, I knew it was wrong. I knew we were manipulating you. But I was so desperate to see you, to have one more chance, that I went along with it. I thought maybe if you came, if you saw me, maybe I could find a way to tell you I was sorry, that I loved you, that I wished I had been a better brother. I sat there stunned, unable to process what I had just seen. Despite all the lies, despite the con, Derek had genuinely been in danger. Not from loan sharks, from himself. I am going to rehab, Derek said quietly, and I am going to get clean. Not because you are making me, but because I do not want to die. I want a chance to be the brother you deserved. Even if it takes the rest of my life to earn your forgiveness. I looked at this broken person next to me, someone I barely recognized, and felt something crack open in my chest. Anger, yes, but also grief. And underneath it all, the faintest possibility of hope. We sat there in silence as the sun set. Two brothers who had lost each other trying to find a way back. 6 days passed. I threw myself into work, managing crews, checking on contracts, anything to avoid thinking about the mess with my family. But it was always there, lurking at the edges of my mind. On the 6th day, Derek texted me the confirmation. He had enrolled in a 90-day residential rehabilitation program. Intake was scheduled for the next morning. He asked if I would drive him there. I said yes. But that evening, before I could pick up Derek, my father called. His voice was panicked. "Wilson, we need to meet. Tonight. At my house. It is urgent." "What happened? Just please come. Derek is here too. We need to talk before he goes to rehab tomorrow." Something in his voice set off alarm bells, but I agreed. I called Jake and told him I was going to my father's house. He said he would park nearby, just in case. I arrived after dark. The house looked different somehow. Sadder. I knocked, and my father opened the door. His eyes were wild, desperate. Inside, Derek sat on the couch, looking equally distressed. On the coffee table were stacks of papers, bank statements, legal documents. "What is going on?" My father paced the room. "The audit. They moved it up. It is happening in 3 days instead of 3 weeks. I do not have time to sell the house. I do not have time to arrange repayment. I need the money now, or I am going to prison." I felt cold. That is not my problem. You agreed to my terms. You sell the house, you set up a repayment plan. That was the deal. "Wilson, please." My father fell to his knees. "I am begging you. Just loan me the $68,000. I will pay you back as soon as the house sells. Please do not let me go to prison. You should have thought of that before you stole the money." Derek stood up. "Wilson, he is our father. You cannot just let him go to jail. Watch me." My father's expression changed. The desperation transformed into something uglier. Anger. Resentment. "You have always been jealous of Derek. Always been resentful that I saw his potential and you did not have any. Now you are being cruel and vindictive because you finally have power over us." "Excuse me? You are no better than we are." Marcus spat. "You are just punishing us because you can. You want to watch us suffer." I stared at him in disbelief. "You think I am being vindictive? You embezzled money. You lied to me. You tried to con me. Those are consequences, not punishment." My father lunged for the coffee table. The envelope of cash I had brought the week before was still there, left behind when I walked out. He grabbed it and clutched it to his chest. "This is mine. You owe me this." I moved to take it back. "Give me that." Derek suddenly grabbed my arm, trying to hold me back. "Just let him have it, Wilson. Just this once, help us." A physical struggle broke out. My father backed toward the door, clutching the money. Derek held onto my jacket, pulling me away from Marcus. I twisted free and grabbed for the envelope. Marcus stumbled backward, lost his balance, and fell hard. His head hit the corner of the coffee table with a sickening crack. He went down and did not move. Derek screamed. Blood pooled beneath our father's head. I froze, terror flooding through me. Oh my God. Dad. I dropped to my knees and checked for a pulse. It was there, but he was unconscious. The wound on his head bled heavily. Derek stood there in shock, unable to move. I grabbed my phone and called 911, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. I need an ambulance. My father hit his head. He is bleeding and unconscious. I gave the address, answered the dispatcher's questions, and then texted Jake. Emergency. Father hurt. Derek here. Stay close. Derek finally moved. He grabbed the envelope of cash from where it had fallen and ran for the door. Derek. No. But he was gone. I heard his car start and tires screech as he drove away. The paramedics arrived 6 minutes later, the fastest 6 minutes of my life. They stabilized my father, got him on a stretcher. He was starting to regain consciousness, moaning in pain. The police arrived right behind the ambulance. They asked what happened. I explained there was an argument. It became physical when my father tried to take something from me. He fell and hit his head. My father, groggy and in pain, could not contradict the story. They took him to the hospital. I stood in my father's empty house, alone, surrounded by blood and chaos, and felt the full weight of how badly everything had fallen apart. My phone buzzed. Jake, I am following Derek. He is headed to a motel on Highway 27. What do you want me to do? Just watch him. Do not approach. I am coming. I will be there. I locked up my father's house and drove to the hospital first. I needed to know Marcus was okay before I dealt with Derek. At the hospital, they told me my father had a concussion and needed 12 stitches. He would be fine, but they wanted to keep him overnight for observation. I sat in the waiting room, numb, until they let me see him. Marcus lay in the hospital bed, bandaged and sedated. His eyes were half open, unfocused. When he saw me, tears started rolling down his face. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I ruined everything. I did not know what to say. I just sat there, watching this broken man who had caused so much pain, and felt something shift inside me. He was not some villain. He was just a sad, broken person who never processed his grief and made terrible choices because of it. A nurse came in and mentioned that my father had been agitated when he first arrived, kept saying he was sorry over and over. She said sometimes head injuries made people emotional, but his remorse seemed genuine. I sat with him for an hour before my phone buzzed. Jake, Derek is still at the motel. Room 12. Has not moved. I am on my way. I drove to the motel, a rundown place that rented rooms by the hour. Jake's car was parked across the street. I pulled up next to him, and he rolled down his window. He has been in there for 3 hours. Has not come out. The cash is probably still with him. I nodded. Thanks for watching him. I am going in. Want backup? No. I need to do this alone. I walked to room 12 and knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Harder. Derek, it is Wilson. Open the door. Silence. Then I heard movement. The door opened a crack, and Derek's face appeared, streaked with tears. He looked destroyed. Can I come in? He stepped back, and I entered. The room was exactly as terrible as I expected. The envelope of cash sat unopened on the bed. Derek sat on the floor against the wall, head in his hands. I could not spend it. I tried to leave, tried to just drive away with the money, but I could not do it. I kept thinking about what Mom would say. I locked up my father's house and drove to the hospital first. I needed to know Marcus was okay before I dealt with Derek. Derek looked up, relief washing over his face. Then he broke down completely. I am so tired, Wilson. I am tired of lying, tired of being this person, tired of hurting everyone. I do not know how to be better, but I want to be. I need to be. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw someone who had hit absolute rock bottom and was finally ready to climb out. Tomorrow, you go to rehab. No excuses, no delays. You check in, and you complete the program. That is where this starts. He nodded. Okay. And when you get out, you get a job. Any job. You pay back Chad. You show up to therapy. You do the work. I will. I promise. I picked up the envelope of cash and stood up. This was never going to save anyone. You know that, right? Money does not fix what is broken in our family. I know. Come on. I am taking you back to your apartment. You pack your things. Tomorrow morning, I drive you to rehab. We drove in silence. I helped him pack a bag for the 90-day program. He moved slowly, like someone in a dream. Before we left his apartment, he showed me his phone one more time. I want you to have this. All the videos. Everything. So you know I am serious about changing. He sent me the entire folder. Hundreds of files documenting his spiral. It was the most honest thing he had ever given me. The next morning, I picked him up at 6. We drove 2 hours to the rehabilitation facility in silence. When we pulled into the parking lot, Derek started crying again. I am scared. Good. Fear means you care about the outcome. We walked inside together. The intake counselor was kind and professional. Derek signed papers, answered questions, agreed to the rules. When it was time for me to leave, he hugged me. It was the first time we had hugged in years. Thank you for not giving up on me. I have not forgiven you, but I have not given up. Those are two different things. I know, and I will earn the first one. I promise. I left him there and drove back to the city. I went straight to the hospital to check on my father. Marcus was awake and alert, the sedation worn off. When he saw me, he immediately tried to sit up. Wilson, Derek. Is he okay? Did he? He is in rehab. I dropped him off this morning. He is safe. My father collapsed back against the pillow, relief overwhelming him. Thank God. Thank God. Now we need to talk about you. Over the next hour, I laid out the same terms I had given before. Confess to the fund board. Sell the house. Repayment plan. Therapy. My father agreed to everything without hesitation, but I added something new. I am going to loan you the $68,000 to cover the embezzlement. But it is a real loan, with a contract, with interest. You will pay me back every dollar. Marcus stared at me in shock. Why would you do that? Because someone has to be the adult in this family, and it is clearly not going to be you. Also because that community fund helps people who need it. I will not let it suffer because of your mistakes. I will pay you back. Every cent. I swear. I know you will. Because if you do not, I still have that recording. 2 days later, I went with my father to meet with the community fund board. He confessed everything. The board was devastated, angry, and hurt. But when my father presented proof that the full amount would be repaid immediately, and a plan to step down from the treasurer position, they agreed not to press charges. I wrote a check for $68,000 to the fund. My father signed a legal loan agreement with me, witnessed by the board. It would take him years to pay me back, but I would get every dollar. As we left the meeting, Marcus turned to me. I do not deserve your help. No, you do not. But this is not about what you deserve. It is about doing what is right, even when it is hard. Over the next weeks, my father listed his house and moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment. He took a part-time job at a hardware store to supplement his Social Security. Every month, he paid me $1,500 toward the loan. Derek completed his 90-day program. I visited him twice during treatment. The conversations were difficult but real. He looked healthier each time. When he was released, Derek moved into a sober living house. He got a job as a manager at a sporting goods store. It was not medical school, but it was honest work. He started paying back Chad $400 a month. We started family therapy, all 3 of us. The sessions were brutal. We talked about favoritism, grief, resentment, and pain that went back years. My father acknowledged things I had waited my whole life to hear. He admitted the favoritism. He admitted projecting his grief onto Derek. He admitted treating me as less valuable. Derek admitted he knew about the favoritism and used it. He apologized for never standing up for me. He talked about the pressure of being the golden child and how it crushed him. I talked about feeling invisible, about the pain of being dismissed, about building a life out of spite and then realizing success felt empty without family to share it with. It was messy and hard, and sometimes I wanted to walk out. But we kept going. Slowly, things started to shift. 6 months after everything fell apart, We were different people. Not healed, but healing. Not whole, but working toward it. It has been 18 months since that midnight phone call that changed everything. I sit here now in my office, looking at photos on my desk. One is of my landscaping crew at our latest project, a hospital campus we just finished. Another is of Derek at 6 months sober, holding his 6-month chip. The third is of my father at his small apartment, smiling cautiously at the camera. Derek is doing well. He celebrated 1 year of sobriety 3 months ago. I was there for his anniversary meeting, sitting in the back of the room as he spoke about his journey. He talked about hitting rock bottom, about the brother who refused to enable him but also refused to abandon him. He cried when he thanked me publicly. I cried too. He still works at the sporting goods store. He was promoted to assistant manager. He has paid back $8,000 of the $12,000 he owed Chad. Chad actually visited him at one of his AA meetings to tell him how proud he was of Derek's progress. They are friends now. Derek moved out of the sober living house into his own small apartment. He is taking online classes in business administration. Not medical school, but something that interests him. Something he chose for himself. We have coffee twice a month now. The conversations are real. We talk about sports, about work, about life. Sometimes we talk about the past, but mostly we focus on moving forward. My father sold his house. The profit after paying off the mortgage was not huge, but it helped him pay down the loan to me faster. He has paid back $42,000 of the $68,000 so far. He works at the hardware store 4 days a week. Customers love him. He knows everything about tools and home repair. It suits him in a way his previous corporate job never did. Marcus attends individual therapy every week. His therapist helped him understand that he never processed the grief from losing my mother. He tried to live vicariously through Derek, to create meaning out of tragedy by making Derek into something extraordinary. It crushed them both. We still do family therapy twice a month. The sessions are less intense now, more focused on maintaining progress than excavating old wounds. My father apologized countless times. He wrote me a 10-page letter acknowledging every way he failed me as a father. I keep it in my desk drawer. Sometimes I read it when I need to remember that people can change. Last month, my father came to visit my business. It was the first time he had ever seen what I built. I showed him the equipment, introduced him to my crew, walked him through our current projects. He stood in the middle of my workshop, surrounded by commercial mowers and landscaping tools, and cried, "I am so proud of you, Wilson. I should have said that years ago. I should have believed in you from the start. What you built here, it is remarkable. You are remarkable." It was the validation I had wanted my whole life. And it felt good. But I realized something important. I did not need it anymore. I had already proven my worth to the person who mattered most. Myself. My business continues to grow. We landed 3 new major contracts this year. I have 20 employees now. We are expanding into full grounds management, irrigation systems, seasonal decorations. I am building something that will last. Something I am genuinely proud of. I met someone. Her name is Sarah. She owns a small cafe near one of my commercial properties. We started talking when I did the landscaping for her building. She knows my whole story. I told her everything on our 3rd date, expecting her to run. Instead, she said it showed character that I set boundaries while still leaving room for redemption. We have been together for 8 months. It is the healthiest relationship I have ever had. Last Sunday, for the first time in 5 years, the 3 of us had dinner together. Not at a restaurant, at my father's small apartment. He made spaghetti and salad. Nothing fancy, just family. The conversation was sometimes awkward, but it was real. My father asked about my business expansion with genuine interest. He wanted to know about the new contracts, the equipment purchases, the hiring plans. He listened like my success mattered to him. Derek talked about his work and his sobriety. He was honest about his struggles. He mentioned he had a hard week, that he had been tempted to use, but he called his sponsor and went to extra meetings instead. My father told him how proud he was of Derek's honesty and strength. I talked about Sarah. I showed them pictures. My father smiled and said my mother would have loved her. Derek joked that I better not screw it up. It felt normal. Almost. We looked at old photos of our mother. My father cried, but they were different tears. Not grief he was running from, but grief he was finally processing. He said she would be proud of all of us, but especially of me for holding the family together when it fell apart. Derek agreed. He said I saved his life, not by giving him money, but by refusing to enable his destruction while still offering a path to recovery. It was not perfect. We will never be a picture-perfect family. The scars are too deep, but we are real now in a way we never were before. I learned something profound through all of this. Family does not mean accepting abuse or enabling destruction. Real love means holding people accountable while leaving room for redemption. My father and brother spent years taking advantage of my strength, mistaking my capability for an obligation to fix their problems. But strength is not just about endurance. Real strength is knowing when to say no, when to demand change, and when to offer a path forward that requires the other person to walk it themselves. Success is not measured by who believes in you first or who gives you money. It is measured by what you build when nobody believes, and how you use that success when the people who doubted you come asking for help. I could have been bitter. I chose to be better. The most powerful form of justice is not revenge or punishment. It is transformation. My father and brother did not just avoid consequences. They faced real accountability and had to change fundamentally to earn back any relationship with me. That is more powerful than anything a court could impose. Being the responsible one does not mean carrying everyone's burden forever. It means knowing the difference between helping someone stand up and letting them lean on you until you both fall down. I helped Derek and Marcus, but only after they showed genuine willingness to change. And I did it with boundaries that protected myself. I drive home from that Sunday dinner with my windows down, music playing. My phone rings. It is Sarah asking how it went. It was hard, but good. Are you okay? Really okay? I think about the question. For the first time in years, I actually am. Yeah, I really am. For the first time in my life, I feel free from the weight of my family's dysfunction. Not because I cut them off, but because I redefined the relationship on my terms. I built a life I am proud of, not despite my family's rejection, but in a way that proved my own worth to myself. Watching them slowly become better people, I feel something unexpected. Hope. Not hope that they will be perfect, but hope that broken things can heal if people are willing to do the work. The greatest gift my father ever gave me was not money or support. It was the opportunity to prove to myself that I did not need anyone's validation to succeed. And the greatest gift I gave my family was not the money that saved them from consequences. It was the demand that they finally grow up and take responsibility for their lives. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be someone's safety net until they learn to stand on their own. Sometimes being strong means letting people fall so they can learn to catch themselves. And sometimes, after everything falls apart, you find that the pieces can be put back together into something different, something real, something worth keeping. I pull into my driveway and sit for a moment, grateful. Grateful for the struggle that made me strong. Grateful for the pain that taught me boundaries. Grateful for the choice I made to demand accountability instead of walking away forever. And grateful that broken families can heal, not by pretending the past did not happen, but by facing it honestly and choosing to build something new. My phone buzzes. It is a text from Derek. Thanks for dinner. Love you, bro. I smile and text back. Love you too. See you at therapy Thursday. Another text. This time from my father. Thank you for giving us another chance. I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve it. I do not respond right away. Some things do not need immediate answers. Instead, I get out of my truck and head inside, where Sarah is waiting with leftover Chinese food and a smile that makes me believe in new beginnings. The past does not disappear. The scars do not vanish, but they do not have to define the future. And that, I think, is enough. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between helping family and protecting yourself? Have you been in a situation where someone you loved asked for help, but you knew giving it would only enable their bad choices? How did you handle it? What would you do if you were in my position? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own family relationships or your own boundaries, please hit that like button Subscribe to hear more stories about real-life struggles, tough choices, and finding your way through difficult family dynamics. Share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who is struggling with similar choices about family, accountability, and love. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for taking the time to hear about the hardest thing I have ever been through and the lessons I learned along the way. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, you find the strength to set the boundaries you need, the wisdom to know when to help and when to step back, and the courage to build a life you are proud of regardless of who believes in you. Take care of yourselves. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hold people accountable. Sometimes strength means saying no, and sometimes broken things can heal if everyone is willing to do the work.